Well, looks like I'm back. Hey humans, how you doing? So, as you probably already can tell from this video, we're doing Demoknight. And if you've already been cringed out by the intro that I made at the start, then I'm very sorry. But let's just get on with this. Also, I might still have a bit of a cold, so sorry if I sound like shit. Anyway, so the first weapon I like to call the Hellwalkers. This whole loadout set is designed to be a Demoknight who came from Hell Tower, like he's been enhanced by the power of Hell from Hell Tower, or from Marasmus, you know, whatever. Anyway, so obviously the names won't be original. Anyway, the Hellwalkers are boots, or well, they're greaves, like, you know, the kind of heavy armor boots that a knight would wear. The upside: whenever Demoman is affected by Afterburn, he gains a speed boost and will apply Afterburn to enemies if he deals damage or collides with them. So pyros are going to be a bit of a, you know, a sort of like a boon to you in a way. You also take 75% less fire damage and 25% increased Afterburn duration for yourself and enemies. So this is important too, because pyros are going to be a big problem for you for this loadout. That's the one big thing I want to point out. So when you take Afterburn damage, you gain speed boost, and you can apply Afterburn to enemies that you just touch. You just have to walk into them and they get Afterburned. Or you can deal damage to them with other weapons, and that would apply it too. And of course the fire damage you take is incredibly reduced, so pyros aren't going to do very much to you here. But yeah, the downside is a 10% less movement speed penalty, which is the opposite thing that the other boots do. The other boots increase your movement speed, this one doesn't, it does the opposite. This one reduces your movement speed. And of course there is also the big main downside of replacing the grenade launcher, but that's with all the boots anyway, that's pretty obvious, so that doesn't need to be written. So the idea of the Hellwalkers is obviously to work with the other two weapons I'm going to list off in a minute, and you'll understand what this loadout is about when you listen to what I tell you. So as long as you are listening, obviously. But let's just get on with the pros and cons. So it's strong against pyros because of the fact that you don't take any fire damage, or you take very little fire damage from the Hellwalkers anyway. You can be very mobile when fighting against fire. So anything that does fire damage to you, you're just going to gain speed boost, because Afterburn will make you faster. Basically, the whole idea of this is Demoman gains power from fire. That he enhances his strength using fire. So whenever he's being attacked by fire, you know, he just gains he gets empowered. And you can deal Afterburn damage to enemies. So Demoknight has an option to do Afterburn damage. So similar to the weapon I had in my previous video for Demoman, the Molotov cocktail, another Afterburn damage option. So yeah, you can deal Afterburn damage to enemies. The cons: slower without pyros. Obviously, if you're not fighting pyros or anything else that can apply Afterburn, you're not going to be very fast, you're not going to gain that speed boost all the time. And it replaces the primary weapon. This is the main part of any boots in Demoman's arsenal. They always replace the grenade launcher. And you you also gain increased Afterburn duration, but this could be hurtful in some situations. You know, if you're at very low health and you do take Afterburn damage, you could actually, you know, if you don't have a medic or a health pack nearby, you could be in trouble. But at the same time, it could also be a boon because of the fact that you gain a speed boost, and you do take less fire damage overall anyway, like a lot less. So it really does depend on the situation. But generally, the increased Afterburn duration could be a downside. So you've got to be careful of that. There are upsides and downsides to having more Afterburn duration on yourself. Okay, so secondary weapon. This is of course a shield. This is a shield from Hell Tower, and it's called the Hell Hath All Fury. Yeah, original name, I know. So this shield has a lot of stats, so let me just, you know, run through this as quickly as possible. So the alt fire, you charge like other shields, but without stopping when you collide with enemies. You can barge past them, knocking them away when you deal damage. So you don't stop when you hit an enemy. You keep on going and you knock them to the side so that you can keep going forward. But you do stop if you collide with an obstacle or a wall or a sentry building or something like that. So you gotta be careful with that. You also gain 2 seconds increased charge duration, and you apply Afterburn on the charge damage. And you also create a trail of fire when charging that applies Afterburn to enemies that walk over it. The trail lasts for 6 seconds, and it's across the length of your charge. So of course that trail would be pretty long because you get the extra charge duration as well. So yeah, this shield is meant to be a charging it's based on its charge. The whole point of this shield is for its charge. But it also has 400% turning control when charging. So I put that stat on the shield instead of the boots because I wanted the boots to be the mobility stopper. I didn't want the boots to focus on extra mobility aside from the speed boost from Afterburn. I wanted the shield to have this stat so that it wouldn't be the boots. And of course this means that if you apply it with the other boots, the booties or something, then you gain 600% turning control when charging, which can be fucking crazy, I know. You also gain 25% increased explosive resistance and fire resistance. That's the kicker. if you compare this, if you play this shield with the boots, you gain 100% fire damage resistance, which means that pyros can't do anything to you with their flamethrowers or their flare guns. But it doesn't mean that pyros are useless. There is counterplay for the pyros, and I'm going to get to that right now with the downsides. A plus 30% bullet vulnerability comes with the shield. So this is the big kicker as well. Demoknight becomes more vulnerable to the things he's already weak to. So heavies, sentries, snipers, and pyros with shotguns, they're going to screw you up hard. Scouts are going to fuck you up too. You also gain 25% less charge speed, so you don't charge nearly as fast as you do with the other shields, and you also gain 10% less movement speed overall. So similar to the Hellwalkers, this also reduces your movement speed. So the whole point of this weapon is to make it so that Demoknight is slower in general, but he's more powerful, and he's, you know, his weaknesses are stronger, but his strengths are much stronger as well. And he's able to apply tons of more damage, and he's able to utilize fire in his advantages. So the pros: able to bash multiple enemies, great charge control and distance, and high fire damage and resistances. So that the whole point of this is to be able to apply multiple instances of damage to multiple enemies. Afterburn and, you know, being able to not pass multiple enemies at once, really good. And yeah, you're able to control your charge more, because your speed, even though your speed is slower, it means that you can control where you're charging much easier, and also you gain, you know, increased turn control and charge duration. So your charge is really good. So the cons: replaces the sticky launcher. That's the main downside with all the other shields as well. So you technically don't have a secondary weapon, even though the shields technically do count as weapons because they deal damage. You're more vulnerable to bullet damage. So heavies, sentries, like I said, snipers are all going to destroy you, and lower base mobility. So without the charge, and if you're using the Hellwalkers as well, you are going to be quite slow, and also your charge is slower as well. So that's the whole point of this. This is meant to be, this Demoknight is supposed to sacrifice mobility for more power. But of course it also means that sacrificing that mobility makes him weaker to the things he's already vulnerable against, which are bullets, snipers, everything like that. So the melee weapon. This is a blade from Hell Tower, and I call it the Hellfire's Havoc, because original names are no longer original. So this weapon functions the same as other swords. We'll get on with the stats, because this thing also has a lot of stats as well. 20% increased damage. Yeah. And on reload, cause a blast of fire around you that deals 60 damage and applies afterburn to you and enemies, and this has a 20-second cooldown. So this, yeah, already sounds crazy, because it not only deals more damage on melee hits, but it also applies an extra effective damage. So it's like a better skull cutter, which I don't want, so I will get to the downsides later. But first I've got the other good sides that I've still not finished yet. It has also got increased 25% afterburn duration. So when any afterburn that you or enemies take, you're going to increase that by 25% even more. So that means combined with the Hellwalkers, you're going to have 50% increased afterburn duration, which means your speed boost from the Hellwalkers is going to last for ages. If Demoknight is charging, the Fire Blast gains 100% more size and deals 80 damage, but the Fire Blast cancels Demo's charge. So this is important. You can cast the Fire Blast when you're charging with the shield, but at the cost of it, you know, cancelling your charge completely. But it does empower the Fire Blast by giving it more damage and double the radius. So the shield charge recharges for 0.25 seconds for every tick of afterburn damage you deal to enemies as well. This is a big thing as well. Being able to, you know, increase your mobility with the fire is the whole point of this loadout. Afterburn increases your speed, it increases your power, it increases your charge power and everything. So I wanted to make it so that the shield charge can recharge when you take afterburn damage. So that way, the Fire Blast on your sword makes it so that you can recharge your shield charge much easier. And of course, if you're fighting against pyros, you're going to get that anyway. Getting a crit kill at the end of the charge causes another Fire Blast that does not increase in size or damage. Additionally, Demoman gains 20 health for every crit kill, up to 80 health at 4 crit kills. So this is another big thing. Technically, yes, this is an Islander effect, but there are differences, because you have to get the actual critical hit kill with the sword at the end of the charge, and it can't be any crit kill, it can't be Kritzkrieg or random crit. You have to get the crit at the end of the charge in order to get that hit. And of course, yeah, the health bonus is much larger, so it's instead of 15 health like the Islander does, it's 20 health, so that means you gain like 20 extra health overall. I think I mathed right, I don't know. But also, you know, there is another downside which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, this also doesn't give you the movement speed like the Islander does. In fact, the downside says that this gives you 10% less movement speed, so with the whole loadout you're going to have 30% less movement speed. The whole point of this, like I said, is to sacrifice mobility for power. You also have 25% less firing speed. Like I said, I didn't want to make this a skull cutter, you know, like a better skull cutter, so I made it so that it has slower firing speed. And it also has 15% increased bullet vulnerability, so with the shield you're going to gain 45% increased bullet vulnerability. Imagine a full charge Machina, that would hurt. And yeah, it also means that snipers could possibly one-shot you on a quick scope, unless you have like enough health from the stacks or overheal. So you do have to be very careful. But yeah, the whole point of this loadout is to make you more vulnerable to bullets and things, you know, which is what Demoknight is already vulnerable against. And also, Demo loses the health stacks if he takes critical damage from bullets. Another important thing, so if you get headshot, or if you take a random crit or a crit streak from a heavy or scout or whatever, you just lose all that extra health. Because the whole point of this is to punish you for overextending against enemies that you're vulnerable to. But it rewards you for, you know, getting the kills and doing as much damage as possible. And it also rewards you for fighting pyros, because pyros are meant to be countered by this loadout. Well, not completely. There is counterplay for the pyros. If a pyro is using shotgun and air blast, he can knock you around and shoot you off. You know, he can keep you away and he can shoot you and you'll probably die. But obviously, if a pyro tries to fight you with any fire-based weapons, you're going to have a massive advantage. So the pros and cons: you have high damage output, as is apparent with the extra damage and the fire blast. Synergizes well with shields, obviously with the shield charge recharge, and it rewards critical hit kills. So this whole thing, the whole sword is meant to reward the Demoknight that uses skill, because I don't know if it takes skill to do a charge crit kill with other shields and blades, but maybe in some cases it can, and this rewards you for that, but it also punishes you for overextending against your weaknesses. Alright, so the cons: it has lower mobility and DPS. You will be less mobile because of the movement speed penalty, and the fact that, you know, you combine that with the other two weapons, you're going to be pretty slow. And also the DPS penalty means that because you have less firing speed, and the fire blast has a 20-second cooldown, because this weapon is meant for burst damage, not DPS. You're more vulnerable towards bullets, which is apparent, obviously, which is very obvious. So sentries, heavies, they're all going to fuck you. Snipers are probably going to be your biggest counter, also because they punish you for taking extra bullet damage, which means that, yeah, taking crit bullet damage means, you know, you're going to get punished for that too. Snipers are probably going to be the biggest counter to this loadout, because of the fact that they can literally take away all your health stacks, and they can probably one-shot you with a quick scope. So you got to be very careful. So this, like I said, this loadout is meant to be a set. It's supposed to be like all the weapons are supposed to synergize together. But you know, you probably can use some of these weapons with other weapons, and it'll probably be very powerful. I don't know, might be too good, too bad. I don't know. I don't really care. It's not like these weapons are actually going to get into TF2, are they? And probably a good thing as well, because all the weapon ideas that I make are completely fucking broken, and that's intentional, by the way. I did not intend for any of my weapon ideas to be like balanced. I intended for them to be interesting. I don't care about balance in this sense, because they're not going to become a thing. I only intended for these things to be interesting. So if you think that the stats that I've got could actually be quite fun and interesting to use, then that's cool. But if they were in an actual game of TF2, like a normal, like casual match of TF2, like on a payload map or on a CP map, these weapons would be absolutely dogshit broken. So yeah, don't let these weapons get into real games, ever. So yeah, that's my Demoknight loadout. Also, one other thing I want to point out is that every one of my weapon ideas, it revolves around the idea of random crits being removed from TF2. None of these weapons should have random crits, and like random crits in general should not exist. So just imagine that all of my other weapon ideas and any more I make in the future, they have the no random crits downside written in their stats, like hidden. Like, it doesn't need to be written, obviously. So yeah, that was Demoknight. Next up should be Heavy, if I decide to get on with it at some point. And of course, any other videos I make, you know, look forward to that. So I'll see you humans later. Next up is Heavy.